Hey, Steve Shenbaum here, and this is the Laugh With podcast, and we are laughing with Dr. Caroline Walsh. I'm so excited Caroline's with us. I want to give you a little bit of a backstory, and then we'll unpack all sorts of fun stuff, focusing on humility, focusing on different worlds colliding. But Caroline is a former Division I athlete, played soccer. She spent 5 years in the Coast Guard. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then 5 years in the intelligence community. One thing I'm fascinated about Caroline is the different worlds that she's existed in and how she's meshed those together. When I say different worlds, she also does stand-up comedy. Huh? That was a pivot. So we've got Coast Guard, we've got intelligence, we've got stand-up comedy, we've got Division I athlete, we've got a PhD, Dr. Caroline Walsh, and lastly, she's written a book, and I'm putting it up on the video, and it's called Fairly Smooth Operator. So Caroline, thanks for joining us with Laugh With.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Yeah.
And it's if we're talking about humility, Division II.
Fair. That's
Bring it down a notch.
More division athletics than I played, all right? I have my high school Letterman jacket behind me, and it's second team all league, and there was only 5 teams in the league. So basically, I wasn't the best shortstop, but I was better than 2 of the shortstops.
Nice.
So
Nice.
I will give you the credit, Division II athlete. It's funny, a lot of people ask in these like podcasts, and actually we don't plan this out, but this is interesting. What music do you have? So that might be a good segue. When you are preparing to present, maybe it's stand-up. Mm-hmm. Do you have a set list that you like to? Do you have a certain music that you like to go to, and why?
Yeah, this actually goes back to soccer.
Okay.
So when I had a CD player and my dad would be driving to a tournament, I would have my headphones on and I would have Jay-Z, the Black Album.
That's great.
Playing. And so that every time I have like a big event, that's what sticks with me.
To this day?
To this day,
oh,
yeah.
Wow.
I put a little Dirt Off Your Shoulder on and
that's so good.
Get in the zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That works. I'm always curious to ask people like, what's that music they listen to before some people do something and listen to something that kind of energize them,
mm-hmm.
but others might listen to something that kind of like is a counter to their personality. Does that bring you up in terms of energy, or does it kind of like settle you, or is it just a nostalgia play?
I think it's a confidence thing.
Yeah.
I think the confidence in that song is like what I need. That's the push I need.
I love it. So rad. All right. So I know a little bit about this because you shared this with me, and I love this visual. So take us back to, you were in Georgetown, right? You're walking around with friends. Where I'm leading towards is Caroline has gotten into stand-up comedy, and it's a big part of your learning, training methodology. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And take us back to like how you walked into that space that was not like in the sort of linear plot line of Coast Guard, active duty Coast Guard, and in the intelligence community. And now you are with your friends, you're in Georgetown. You want to take it from there?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think, the night before or the weekend before, we had gone to a comedy show. And so it was primed. I was primed for the stand-up comedy. So we saw a comedy show live, and then later that week, we're walking around Georgetown and I see a flyer in the window.
Okay.
It's for an open mic. It's a veterans-related group. I'm a Coast Guard veteran, and I just thought, I think I could do this.
Time out for just a second. Like, that takes a tremendous amount of confidence. I guess my question would be, where was that coming from? You played elite soccer. You had been in high-performing spaces with Coast Guard and in the intelligence community. You think that's where it was coming from? Like, I can do this. Not everyone looks at the stand-up comedy space and goes, I can do this.
Yeah, that's a great thought. What I think, like, there is one thing, like, for the CIA, you are hired for your ability to think that you can accomplish something that nobody has done yet, right? So there's something that they hire you for, and then they build into you, where it's like, this is a big problem. I think we can do it. So I think it's called self-efficacy officially in social cognitive theory, but it's just this belief that you could succeed in it. And so I think I probably had a little bit of that going for me.
Wow. So you walk into this space. You say, I can do this. You see the flyer.
I see the flyer.
And you just get up and do stand-up comedy like that night?
I went home and I wrote stuff down.
Cool.
So I'm always prepared. I'm not... Improv is not my strength. So I did write it. I went up there. It was okay. They were like, hey, we have some storytelling classes. Maybe that would be your thing. And I was just like, no, I'm doing stand-up comedy. Sign me up. I'll get better. I'll figure it out. So yeah. And then the flip side, I joined the class, 6-week class once a week, and then you do a big show at the end. So you're building up towards a 5-minute set. I get into the class, everybody's extroverted, everybody's making jokes. And my first thought is like, ooh, I don't know if I can do this. But actually it ended up being, I had a really good set by the end. And actually it was kind of this flip of people that came out, really confident and joking, actually had to tone it down and get into the writing. And I came in being ready to write, and I had to ramp up and get into the performing.
Oh, that's really good. I want to stay in that for a second.
Okay.
Because one of the things I'm fascinated by is you've mentioned to me in all these high-performing spaces, Coast Guard and CIA and the intelligence community and Division II soccer, there is a space for humility. You've told me that. Like you've brought in some humility. So you went in with a little bit of humility because you knew this isn't your jam, you know? And by the end, did you find that some of the folks that were coming in a little hot, coming in with a little bit of bravado,
Yes.
had to maybe tone it down a bit?
Definitely.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When did you think this stand-up comedy muscle, this gateway as a learning tool can be implemented in leadership and communication training?
I think my first realization was at my graduation show. So we're at the DC Improv. I do my 5-minute set. I invited all of my friends at the CIA to come out.
Okay, just sit in that for just a second. I love you. That's so wild. Did you find, as a former actor, when I didn't do a lot of stand-up like you did. I did more storytelling and like hosting. But whenever there was a room of other stand-up comics, it wasn't always the warmest room. For you, when you had all your colleagues, was that a comforting feeling, or was that a intimidating feeling?
I think it put a little bit more pressure on. Yeah. So I think I needed the pressure. I mean, it was already a lot of pressure, but I think I was excited too. I was excited about my jokes, and I was nervous. I mean, they're pretty personal. So I'm about to say some personal stuff in front of work colleagues.
Yeah.
And so after the show, and then even onward a few weeks later, the conversations we had at work were way different after they attended my set and heard me open up and heard about my experience. So I think that's when I saw this humility, this human connection, and taking it into the workplace where we had to work together closely, and the benefits we had of, just opening up just a little bit more.
So did you find when you had, this is really interesting, you had your audience, your colleagues in the audience for your stand-up, it was almost like maybe you were giving them permission when you were back in the workplace to maybe share a little bit to you about their personal story? Did you find that sort of that handoff where they came up to you and said, hey, you shared your thing, something that you didn't know about me?
Absolutely. I mean, it was unintended consequence, but yeah, I mean, one guy opened up about his experience in the Army, or, other people's divorce and relationships. So maybe it was, opening up about these personal things and things that are like what we're struggling with, because I was able to share it in a funny way. And so they were able to open up and take that humor and just run with the humility part of it.
So at that point you were thinking maybe we can use this artistic form as a way to maybe break down some barriers?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did that get implemented into your work now? Because it's not just you're doing stand-up. You're doing like stand-up workshops.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And do you find a lot of non-actors entering into that space? Similar to when you walked in with your friends in Georgetown, grabbed a flyer, and whatever, a week later said, I'm going to do this.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's where the PhD came in, where I had some leadership research. I was studying ethical leadership. And so when I went to conferences, sometimes I presented my research, and then I did a round where I did my workshop with academics, with serious people in the leadership field. And then got their feedback on the workshops, and then incorporated, some of this, social cognitive theory, the self-efficacy, just putting like the academic theory into it and really building it to be like, no, this is a leadership development opportunity.
Wow. Do you ever see with these attendees that they're stunned that they're funny?
Yeah, I think that's the best part. Like, and I think I love that I can tell the ones that are like, I don't know if I should be doing this. I love that I can be like, hey, when I first walked into that class, I thought the same thing, and like I had a great set, so like I think being able to connect with the people who are like, oh, I don't know, it's like you're actually gonna be way better than you think you are.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think, and then the funny thing is, then the people that think they've got it, it's like actually it's a time for you to reflect a little bit and do the writing. So it fits, it meets everybody where they're at. Right. Yeah.
That's the part that fascinated me even earlier when you mentioned there's no judgment. I've been on both sides, where you mentioned in that class that there were folks that came in a little bit with bravado. That wasn't a term you used, but that confidence. And they had to kind of reset a little bit and create some structure so they didn't go from confidence to just sparkle speaker. I'm interested in finding that middle. How do you find that middle? We talk about that humility that's needed. How do you bring in that humility without overplaying it and it becoming not humility, it becoming I'm not worthy or I don't belong here? Where were you seeing that when you mesh these worlds together?
I mean, I think part of leadership too, like you do see the leaders, same as the stand-up comics who come in like a little overconfident, not really listening. And then, they kind of do need to come back down, like grounded, So I think it happens like naturally in the workshop that if you need the confidence boost, you're going to get it. If you need maybe a little more of that groundedness, you're going to get it. So I love how it's just kind of magic. Like it just, when you're sharing about yourself, you're having to write, you're having to focus, and then you're having to present it. You're getting whatever you need, really, is kind of what I see in the workshops.
And you're getting immediate feedback.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like it's not one of those things that you have to look back a month from now and get that feedback. You're getting an after action report right there. Mm-hmm. Did that joke land? Did the audience roll with you in that story? Yeah. That's like accountability, like on time.
Right. Yeah. And if you're up on stage, you're having to just take in the audience, just like, if you're a leader and you got to take in your team and like, what's the mood and like, what do they need versus like, what do I have on my set list?
So good. So let's go back now with that humility. Let's thread that. Like you entered into this Coast Guard space. Was that something you had planned while you were in college playing soccer, and you're like, my goal is Coast Guard, and my goal after that, after serving in active duty there, is to get into the intelligence community? Or was that something that they came and recruited you? How did that work?
It was not planned. My undergrad was in psychology. I was graduating right around the 2008 financial crisis. I was surfing and playing soccer. My two friends I surfed with ran into a Coast Guard recruiter out in the water.
Isn't that wild when you have LinkedIn and you get to send your VC and your resume? No, just go out and surf, and maybe someone next to you who's paddling with you might be a recruiter.
Yeah. And so I was working actually at like a soccer club at the time, and they came and they're like, hey, we're going to go surf. Do you want to go? And I was like, no, like I'm working. And they're like, we're joining the Coast Guard. Like we don't have to work. Like we're going to be going to boot camp, like kind of like a little bit shoving in my face. Because I was like, oh, I have to work, So it was just, they were all in and I was just considering. And so it took me a while to come around to it. But eventually I did come around to it. I thought, okay, psychology, they've got an intelligence track. Like it's I'd love to have like a job and experience, especially during the financial crisis that was hard to find. So it was just kind of a blend. And I think that was the first time like just really trusting something wild for me at least.
Yeah.
And just, you have to go all in. You have to sign on the dotted line. You have to sign up for those 4 years. So yeah, just owning that level of commitment.
Then you get into the intelligence community and you have to navigate a new space. And there's, I'm sure, stereotypes around being a young woman in the intelligence community. I'm assuming you're outnumbered. The ratio of men and women in that space is not equal. Is that correct?
It's not. I think for me, coming from the Coast Guard, it was refreshing. So it was a little bit better ratios or more equal ratios in the Coast Guard.
Got it.
So
even more disparate in the Coast Guard than it was in the intelligence community. Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's still a lot to navigate. I mean, I have a story in my book where I went overseas and I was working with this guy, and it just wasn't a comfortable experience.
Yeah.
And then we're working with, our liaison, and I was expecting a lot from them. They had like kind of a machismo culture. Like this guy was telling me in Spanish, he's like, "Oh, you look like my daughter." And he's about to show me a photo on his phone. I was like, gosh, what is he going to show me? I just was a little nervous, and then he shows me the photo on his phone, and it is his daughter. And I did look a lot like her.
Mm-hmm.
So we had this like humility and this connection. And then surprise, like the person I'm working for who's actually supposed to have my back was just like not being appropriate. And so just like this contrast, of what you're dealing with was
you and I talked about this a while ago, actually, and it's about boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk a little bit about boundaries in your stand-up workshops, but before even that, how did you find, looking back, that you were able to establish boundaries in navigating through that intelligence space as a young woman, and some techniques that you were able to apply, maybe looking back going, that helped, that worked, whether it's like, certain nonverbal signals or even verbal signals or parameters you established in that space?
I think for me, I think that's, as a young woman and even any young person, you're new, you're trying to do everything, you want to trust everybody, or, if I came from an environment where like I could, trust my community and, like trying to figure out, okay, now I have to figure out who I can trust. So I think for me, like, honestly, learning boundaries came from just having a really good manager who held them for me before I could. So, somebody wanted me to go TDY overseas for 5 weeks. He's like, do you want to go? And I was like, I mean, I could. And he's like, you're going to go for 1 week. You're going to go for 1 week. We'll see how it goes. So having somebody, a mentor, have your back, I think is really important, especially as you're navigating like a new space and you're, they hire people who have like the drive, right? So having somebody to like, tone back the drive, let's think about this, and holding that boundary for you as you're like learning how to navigate.
It's really good. Did you find moments in that intelligence community during your time where I think intelligence, and right away I'm going to use the stereotypes, right? I'm thinking like undercover. I'm thinking like high operation, high performance, big operations, stealth. But there had to be moments where you used humor and storytelling and comedy to navigate through tense situations. Yeah?
For sure.
Yeah. Can you share, without breaching confidentiality, like where you were able to kind of diffuse tension or develop connections or get intel by just utilizing humor and intelligence? Is that fair?
That's fair.
I'm not going to get canceled for answering.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm gonna give like a boring answer though. It's not gonna be operations.
That's fine. I don't think it's gonna be boring. But.
Yeah. So I moved actually from operations to the Office of Advanced Analytics. So like all the PhDs in mathematics. I was a targeter, so that was not me in the mathematics part of things. So I moved from operation to advanced analytics, and they were hosting their first conference. So I think we had some people from like another agency, but intra-agency conference, because we wanted to have people working on these really high-level mathematical projects around the organization share with each other so that they weren't repeating efforts, right? Okay. Like if someone had already written this code, why is somebody across the building also writing this code? Like we already have it.
Got it.
So they developed this conference and they wanted to use it to like just share what people were doing. And they look at me and they're like, you do stand-up comedy. And I was like, yeah. They're like, you're going to host it.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah,
you just got voluntold.
I just got voluntold. So the funny thing is, when I was in the operational realm doing targeting, they called me the Sphinx. They were like, you are so introverted. You are so quiet, because they're all the extroverts, right? And they're all the case officers, and they're, making a show, and I'm doing the strategy behind the scenes. And then I moved to advanced analytics. They're doing the strategy behind the scenes, and they're like, you're the extrovert. And I was like, nobody has ever told me that in my life.
I actually did not see that coming. That was not a boring story, by the way. But you were showing humility. I love this idea of breaking these stereotypes down, because if everyone who is quote unquote extroverted is extroverted and all the introverts are introvert, then you can argue that only a certain population is going to get the microphone. Only a certain population is going to be told. So I actually loved that you were asked to host it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you're an extrovert? Do you think you're an introvert? Do you think you're an ambivert? Do you think it all depends?
I mean, of all the tests I've taken, I'm 100% introverted.
Yeah. Yet you walked into a random place in Georgetown. I was like, I can do stand up. I'll be in the Coast Guard. I'll get in intelligence. So
yeah, I guess I'm like sensation seeking, right?
Oh, that's good.
Maybe that's it, right? I love, like, because I'm like quiet, I'm reserved, but like I love surfing. I love getting, like, I was body surfing the other day. Yeah. It was Pacific, so it's still a little chilly, and like I can't get enough of it. So like I think getting on stage, like getting my adrenaline going, getting things ramped up, like maybe I'm an adrenaline junkie.
I like the way you said sensation seeking. That is so good, because people can relate to that.
Yeah.
And then we're breaking out of some of these stereotypes. I'm just passionate about, I guess I'm extroverted, but I can be introverted too. I'm just passionate about having a lot of different voices have access to the microphone. And if you're told over and over again, it's not your jam, that's not your jam, you can believe it. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Definitely.
And you never get a chance to try it. So yeah.
So what motivated you? Gosh, you've had so many fascinating moments. I have this metaphor in my head with you, Caroline, of like the walk into the Georgetown stand-up space is like a metaphor. You've walked into a lot of random spaces and succeeded. Coast Guard, intelligence community, now in the leadership communication space. You walked in to write a book. You walked in and wrote a book. A lot of people say, I'm going to write a book. You did it. What was that motivation? What was that like to say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to get my thoughts down. And was there someone who was whispering in your ear, or was it just your desire to like get your thoughts on paper?
It was just my desire. And like, I don't like unfinished projects. So if I write an article, I finish it in that sitting.
By the way, that is such a good statement for anyone who's listening to find that sentence for them in a job interview. Mm-hmm. You know, to me, that's so much more powerful than I'm a hard worker.
Right.
I'm a good team player. Right. And I'm not trying to mock that, but you hear that all the time versus like, yeah, I wrote a book because when I start something, I finish it.
Right.
If I'm an employer, I'm listening to that going, you just proved it to me. You know? Mm-hmm. So you're a sensation seeker. And I like the alliteration. And once you knew you started, you were going to finish it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
How long did it take you to write the book?
It took me, so I started December 2019. Okay. I was on vacation in Ecuador. Mm-hmm. And so my friends and I would go surf, come back, have breakfast, and I would just write for 3 or 4 hours. It was amazing. And
you were in your space. You were in that sensation seeking space. I think that's important as a creative for people to understand, like, you know, your dopamine's going, you're satisfying that sensation seek. Mm-hmm. So you're probably in a better mindset, not just physically in a mindset, but mentally and emotionally in a mindset to like get to the core of what you're passionate about. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And just, riding the wave and writing. So I started December 2019 and then I finished over that summer, probably August, I want to say. Yeah. And then worked on the publication that came out November 2021.
Cool. Yeah. Did you know the title, or did that come as like a reverse engineer?
I don't remember when that came. I think it was early on. Yeah. Because what I did and what I still do is I write all the titles of my chapter. And then I write the story. Yeah,
that's what I meant by reverse engineering. Yeah. Like you come up with the title and then you back into it with like, okay, how do I then justify this premise?
I think it helps me finish the project. So I'm glad I have a title. Like have the beginning.
Again, we're trying to have fun with this, but also like what's tangible? Like, hey, for those folks, I'm one of them that wants to get to the end zone, then create the end zone. Mm-hmm. And then reverse engineer to like get to that finish line. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Not everyone's wired that way, but I'm even looking at the cover and you've got like you on a surfboard holding a
life ring.
A life ring, and then there's this sort of scary.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
The wave.
Yeah. So for those who can't see this, it's like a visual face of like a scary wave. There's some fun going on. There's some play going on, but there's some intensity here. Like, what's that scary wave? Like going into the unknown?
I think it's there's a lot of difficult things that happen in the Coast Guard. Yeah. So I think that represents the difficulties. And then the irony is in that I have the life ring and I'm throwing it to somebody, but like if you read the stories, like I kind of needed the life ring.
Yeah.
Like I was waiting for someone to throw me the life ring.
That's actually really powerful. We hear it on the airplane all the time. Put your oxygen mask on first. I think that's even more powerful. Like our first instinct, especially if you're in the service space, in the care for other space, in the protection space, is, hey, I'm going to throw you a life ring.
Yeah.
Great. Now you don't have a life ring.
Right.
And now you're dealing with your own stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. You shared with me in your workshops, there's always that sort of boundary dynamic where people will start to lean into the comedy, right? And there's no ill intent, but it gets all sorts of kind of whoa, right?
Yeah.
How do you know with us in Game On, we talk about laugh with, not at. We have to have boundaries. We don't like to dive into like inappropriate humor. We're mostly in the corporate, military, and college pro sports space, but you're in also the performance space. How do you deal with those boundaries? Also infuse authentic humility so people aren't like all of a sudden just going for the shock joke.
Right. So one thing I do is make it very clear that your jokes need to be about your experience. They need to be about your community. So the whole purpose of this, stand-up comedy for leadership is to explore you. And so if you start poking out at other people, we're not learning about you. So I think for the, using it for leadership is just really bringing it back to yourself. And that helps, drive people into the humility space.
Yeah.
And then I think I say, keep it PG-13-ish, right? Like we're all adults. So like, that's kind of a reference people can understand. And then in comedy, there's like, you can also bring it to like the punching up, punching down, right? So just being careful, like which direction are you going? So I think with those three things, that normally keeps people in line.
I want to just repeat that because it's tangible. Punching up, punching down dynamic, PG-13-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that third one?
And then the third one was like, it needs to be about you, your community.
Yeah. And I think if you think in those guardrails, you're naturally, hopefully going to stay in a space where you're not all of a sudden going for the rip the other person, the shame, or the shock and awe, especially when you're talking to folks that are trying to use this art form as a gateway for leadership, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Talk about also just, and then we'll kind of land the plane on sort of some humility takeaways, but the difference between teaching stand-up comedy as a leadership tool. Do you talk at all about this idea of presentation versus performance? Because if you're doing stand-up comedy for other actors, it's a whole different ballgame. Their thing is, I'm performing. My job is to perform and entertain, and there's nothing wrong with that. But are you leading folks in a direction more for leadership, or do you just let them find that path naturally?
So I guide them. I mean, we call it public speaking.
Yeah.
Right? So just guiding them and getting more comfortable sharing in front of a group is a lot of times the first step, right? Like it doesn't need to get too complex at that point. It's really like crafting that concise message, which we use in comedy, we use in leadership, and then sharing that message. And so practicing your tone, practicing your volume, like just getting a chance to try it different ways, which we don't always get to do in the corporate space.
Yeah. When you talk about humility, you talk about doing things that maybe are not in people's comfort zone, right? You could argue stand-up comedy is like jumping out of a plane with a parachute for people that don't like to get in to that level of risk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk about those elements of humility, that groundedness, that sense of comfortable self that is needed to do these things, especially when folks aren't really sensation seekers.
Right. I like to explain it with, there's this theory from the Center for Creative Leadership, and they talk about how leadership development takes 3 conditions.
Okay.
So the first condition that you need is the heat experience, which is the challenge. So I like to open with the class that this is going to be challenging.
Yep.
This is going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
you're going to get through it, and it's going to help you grow.
So I just want to repeat this, 'cause this is so good. This is that takeaway, the heat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The heat. And then
I like that, because we oftentimes try to overplay the other way and be like, hey, we're going to make this really comfortable. Well, actually, I don't know if there's a lot of growth when all we're doing is keeping it comfortable. But it's not easy, because some folks might not want to sign up, right? When you say, hey, our marketing campaign is, we're going to get outside our comfort zone, we're going to stretch a little bit, no, save it, right?
Yeah.
So heat experience.
Yeah. The second condition is colliding perspectives. Yeah. So when you're in a class like this, you're listening to other people's stories. You're listening to, like, we do a mind map. So you're listening to different parts of their lives that you maybe haven't heard of before. So you're getting a different perspective, a different life experience. And then the final one is elevated sense making.
Okay.
So by having the challenge, by listening to other people's stories, and then having the time to, like, have directed reflection is what helps you get to that next level. Because a lot of leadership workshop, you get the heat, you get the colliding perspectives, and then you don't get the reflection time.
Yeah.
So the thing I love about stand-up comedy is the writing is the natural reflection time.
Yeah.
And so it's worked into that really well.
I love that you're taking this wonderful art form and bringing it into the leadership space. I did not have on my bingo card years ago that a former college soccer player who was in the Coast Guard, who was in the intelligence community, would be one of the leaders taking stand-up comedy and introducing it to leadership. So well done.
Thank you. Thanks.
And I'm glad you were out surfing when that person was ready to recruit you.
Right.
And you were open to it. It's radical. For me, Caroline, it's a reminder that, like, we need to honor a variety of voices, you know, and the self-appointed introvert might have a really powerful voice and a really powerful message to share. I think it's awesome. That, putting you on the spot here, that final, like, just quick hit reminder, you know, for all of us, we think about what's that practical technique? You shared that triple. But what is that sort of practical thing? Walk into a new space, and how do we find that humility without losing our confidence? You know, what would you say to a younger Caroline Walsh who wants to walk into that Georgetown stand-up comedy space and have humility, but also have presence and not have imposter syndrome?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, don't take yourself too seriously, and also take yourself seriously. No. At the same time.
Yeah.
That's what it requires. So
God, I love it. Well, I got to give credit where credit's due. So Blaine Smith and Brandon Young from Applied Leadership were the ones that introduced us.
Yes,
to
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to give that shout out. Caroline, we love your voice. Love that you're a part of this sort of Game On ecosystem, bringing in some subject matter expertise and continuing to be a sound voice for stand-up comedy and humility and confidence, and not taking ourselves so seriously, but also, to quote you, to take ourselves seriously.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Let's go. Laugh with Dr. Caroline Walsh. Thanks so much. Appreciate you.